Hello, and welcome to the Trauma Informed Parent Podcast. If you're just joining us, Trauma Informed Parent is a resource for parents and caregivers of young people who have experienced trauma. And young people can be anything from 25 on down. And the focus of our podcast is to offer information, wisdom, experiences that can enrich, support, and empower parents and caregivers. Basically, the kind of information that my partner Catherine and I wish that we had had back in 2012 and 2004 when our children experienced a trauma. And we are thrilled today to have with us Steve Gross. Steve Gross is a clinical social worker and the founder of the Life is Good Playmaker Project. For over 30 years, he has pioneered innovative play-based trauma interventions for communities around the world. Steve's work is rooted in his belief that play is the universal language of children and that adults must speak it fluently in order to help children heal, grow, and thrive. His unique approach has been instrumental for communities around the world, including Haiti, Ukraine, and Newtown, Connecticut, communities that have faced large-scale traumas. Steve's work has also been celebrated by international trauma experts and was featured as an example of how play can be used in therapy in the well-known book, The Body Keeps the Score. Welcome, Steve.
Susie,
Yes.
Kat, thank
Yay.
you. So happy to be on your podcast.
Thank you. Nice to
I
have you
love the work
here.
that you guys are doing.
Thank you. I'm going to jump right in and ask you, what do you say to parents and caregivers? Because I imagine this comes up a lot, who think that the word optimism or play feels unrealistic in the face of deep trauma.
Well, it's a great question. And to be honest, like no one's ever said that to me before, which is kind of cool. Um, and I think though, let me talk about both of them because, I think sometimes optimism gets a bad rap. And you look at optimism as, or not you personally, but people look at it as like, Pollyanna, everything is wonderful. It's toxic positivity, cheer up, look on the bright side. And I feel like optimism is something that you can't push on people. It's caught, it's not taught. Like if you're a practicing optimist, as I kind of consider myself a practicing optimist, and you ever tell somebody to cheer up, you lose your membership card. Um, Optimism to me, I have a very simple definition, and it's about your capacity to see the good. It's your capacity to see the good in yourself, in others, and in the world around you. It is not about denying pain. And so, you know, um, one of my favorite t-shirts I think Life is Good ever made was there's no use being pessimistic, it wouldn't work anyway. Um, and
That's
so,
great.
like if it's like play for kids isn't realistic in the face of trauma to help people move forward, I'd be like, okay, cool. What is? What are you currently employing to help people to move forward?
Mhm.
And and to me, this idea of optimism too is being able to focus sometimes on the things that you have some control over, the things that you have some choice over. So, this idea that I'm trying to use an example that something horrific happened to someone, and I just make a blanketed, someone had a horrific loss. Um, one of the things that someone in that situation might be able to take comfort in is people that come out to support them and to help them.
Mhm.
And so, do they have that? And can they feel the love and support of other people? Um, can they, find moments in that journey where maybe they have a recollection and a memory that they have and they have that experience?
Mhm.
And also, I mean, that's like the fact that, and someone brought this up, I, I lost my dad about 4 years ago. And my mom and dad, my mom met my dad when she was like 16 years old. And her life was my dad. That was her world. And when he died, I mean, she's still, not a day goes by where we don't think about my dad and talk about my dad. But she was in so much pain. There was such a loss there. And I remember someone talking about it, not to what a gift it is to be able to feel that much pain, to have lost something that meant that you had something that was so deep and so beautiful for so many years.
Mhm.
It was a reframe, like
Mhm.
we get to mourn. Now, you
Mhm.
don't rub that in someone's face and be like, you should be grateful that you get to mourn. But
Right.
bringing that up and someone saying, like, wow, I'm just so touched by the deep, loving relationship that you guys were able to have for over 70 years. You know, not many people get to have that and those
Mhm.
memories. So, I think that if I knew of a better strategy to help kids move through things,
Mhm.
to also be able to play and to seek solace and to do able to engage in something that comforts them, where they feel some sense of empowerment, where maybe they can feel a connection, um, I would offer that.
Mhm.
But
Makes
I,
sense.
I actually do want to share a really cool story with you,
Okay.
um, because it's the best example I have of a time where someone did say that. And it was in 2001. A teacher told me this story from Turkey. And I had done some training in Turkey after the earthquakes there. There were some massive earthquakes in around 2000, 2001, maybe 1999. I don't remember exact date. And we had taught a play-based intervention for teachers. And so after the earthquake, one of the teachers who we had provided some training with decided to try this with some of her high school students. And so she
Mhm.
set up a game, and the kids were outraged. And one of the kids said, how dare you think that we should play? We just lost friends and family and houses to an earthquake. And
Mhm.
here you are asking us to play. And the teacher was very sweet. And she said, I understand what you're thinking. And I understand what you're saying. And she said, but can you all come here for a minute? And she took a glass of water like this and put
Mhm.
it down on the table. And she asked the kids to look at the glass of water. And she said, is the earth shaking now? And the kid said, no. And she said, listen, I know I lost things too. And I understand that we have no control over what happened in the past.
Mhm.
And I also know that we're experiencing aftershocks and we have no control over what might happen tomorrow.
Mhm.
But in this one moment where we know that the earth is not shaking, I'm inviting you, if you'd like, to play and to feel alive. And you don't have to.
Right.
And a bunch of kids came and started playing. And then there was some laughter, and some kids watched. It was very respectful. It was the choice.
Mhm.
And then there was energy that shifted and changed in the room, and some kids came to play, and some kids that were playing decided to leave. But I thought it was the best example of saying, in this moment right now,
Mhm.
how do we want to engage each other?
It's
And that we can, this is, people will have different ways that they want to cope with the situation. I remember after a horrible bus accident um, at Oak Hill Middle School, where three members of the band were killed in an accident. And I was working at the trauma center then, and they were talking about should we cancel practice, sports practices. We had this
Mhm.
tragedy. How can
Mhm.
someone dare to play soccer or basketball or any of these things after this tragedy? And my advice, whether it was right or wrong, was like I wouldn't cancel the practices.
Mhm.
I would have kids, if they an optional, to
Mhm.
let folks know we're all in grief and shock.
Yes.
If you think it would be helpful to assemble and come to practice, You'll be welcome where we can talk and support. And if you need this time to be home.
Right.
But
Well,
the
I think Catherine and I saw a lot of that here in Newtown after the shootings, where there was definitely some discrepancy among leaders as well as families as to, what should be hush hush and what should be talked about, and should kids be know about the trauma or not know about it, or should we bring in people to talk about it or not bring in people? And there was a lot of conflict during those years with those very things.
but
Yeah,
my
and I
my thing
think
is like, oh, I'm sorry, Kat,
no,
please.
that's okay. And I think one of the things that's interesting about that is in a time when we're all in varying degrees of suffering and pain after something really awful happens, it's almost like people seek to find a singular solution, right? Like we all should do this or we all should do that, when it really is about we all have to measure where we are. And with our children too, inviting them, giving them the option to kind of join or not join and do what their bodies and their minds feel like they need to do at that time, and us as adults to be around them to support that. That seems to me to be the
Absolutely.
right answer,
Yeah,
right?
and not judging like, oh,
Right.
you're wrong. How dare you want to play soccer right now? Like, actually, if you felt like playing soccer in a moment of grief, that's actually might be just what your body and mind need right now.
Hmm.
And to judge people's response or how they want to cope as right or wrong,
Hmm.
I love the options. And I also love the idea that, with a good coach to say, hey, we're here. Team, how do we want to spend our time? I'm glad we're all here. We can spend some time talking. Do you all feel like actually running and moving our bodies? Because sometimes that actually helps us deal with all the adrenaline and everything that's going on. And there's
Hmm.
no right or wrong way to grieve.
Right.
Um,
But you mentioned the teacher, which was a brilliant, sounds like a wise teacher. For a lot of parents and caregivers, those skills don't come naturally. Like if a child is acting out because of a trauma or shut down for that matter, how can a parent or caregiver stay grounded and responsive instead of also reacting? I know a lot of parents will react when their kids react. And I did that, with my son back in the day. What are some tools to help them be more like the way that teacher was?
well, I mean, I think to me, I mean, one of the most important things, like I kind of look and when I think about kind of helping somebody to help
Hmm.
somebody regulate emotions, I think the most important factor is, are we regulated?
Yeah.
Like it's
Hmm.
a dysregulated adult can't help a child regulate.
Nope.
And, so this idea of, and again, it's such a cliche of like putting your oxygen mask off first, but like, do you recognize like, hey, what am I doing to support my social and emotional well-being, my psychological health?
Hmm.
Am I sound in this moment? And in addition to that, do I have some knowledge and, some type of a framework? Because it's not, like, I'll share some, like my son, we found out was allergic to pine nuts. And, he had an anaphylactic accident when he was out with my oldest son. And it really like it when he came through that, he was super, super anxious. At this point, he was, I think, 6 or 7 and
Hmm.
afraid to eat anything. And I feel like my throat is closing. I don't know, am I going to be okay? And here I am, a dad, a playmaker. I'm at the trauma center with all these great folks. And I'm like, I'm not sure how to handle this. And I asked for some help from a colleague. And they recommended a book. And the book was really simple. The book said something like, it wasn't like this long book that I had to read, but it was a children's book. And it talked about like worries were like, I think like gardens. The more you
Hmm.
tend to them, the more they grow. And this idea about when kids are worried all the time and we start to reassure them all the time, they need more and more reassurance. And so it gave a little
Mm.
technique of create worry time. And when your child says, like, Daddy, I think, I can't breathe. Am I going to be okay? I say, Hey, B, that sounds like a worry, man. And right now, we're going to have some special time, like 3 times a day at noon. At this, we're going to have worry time. But I told him ahead of time, but when you start worrying and saying stuff like that, and it looks like you're worried, it's going to make it worse sometimes if we keep talking about it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask you to save it for worry time. And I'll even write it down so we can talk about it during worry time. We'd go on a bike ride. He'd start saying, Hey, B, that sounds a lot like a worry. Let's take care of that at worry time. Hey, B, that sounds like a lot like a worry. I'm going to write it down. Let's take care of it at worry time. I got to tell you, we did 3 worry times a day for the first few days, and we went to 2 worry times, and it was 1 worry time. And then it was like, Dad, I don't need worry time.
Wow.
Now, that was a very, it was a smaller case, but my point being, there's a lot of wisdom out there in the world from people who have, and we're getting closer. Like I know people are freaked out about AI and this and that, but like, man, I ask AI some questions just like when I can't get a human being, and it
Mhm.
gives me a little framework that I can go like, wow, that's an interesting idea. And so I think it's this mind, body, spirit thing as a parent. Number one, is our body and spirit in the right place? Do we have enough support so that we can be regulated?
Mm-hmm.
Once we're regulated, well, let's take from our community of folks and see if we can get a framework or a game plan of some things that we can try in these moments.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you have a great game plan, but you're dysregulated, it's not going to work.
Not gonna work.
Yeah, not at
And if
all.
and so I think like that combination, my first thing would be like, hey, what kind of supports do you have as a parent?
Yep.
What are you doing to deal with your dysregulation, your
Yep.
pain, your grief, your trauma? And as we say again, like, and try to get help. It's a hard thing to be able to do all alone.
Yes. And
And
I
Well,
also
and
so,
know, go
go
ahead,
ahead,
Catherine.
Suze. Okay. I was going to say that's one of the things that this podcast and Susie and my work is really all about. We are both parents of traumatized children. We both have our own trauma history. So we're coming with kind of a stacked deck with lots of wisdom, but also with awareness of our own fragility in places. And I think, as parents, the automatic response is always, well, I don't need to help myself. I need to help my kid now, right? And that's exactly the opposite of really what you're saying is like, okay, you need to look within, you need to build out your framework, you need to talk and gather some wisdom so that you have kind of a wealth of knowledge or a well of knowledge to work from and people that you can lean on. So
absolutely.
can I ask an offshoot of that question? Because a
Sure.
lot of times when we're talking with parents, especially in the foster care system, who are taking care of these children who've had lots of different types of traumatic experience. How would you, or do you have any suggestions or thoughts when a parent or caregiver is working or is trying to help a significantly emotionally dysregulated kid who's and I'll just use this word, acting out a lot, who's really, really struggling. And I know from my own experience working with foster parents that it can be very wearing after a while.
So,
It's really, really difficult to kind of get it up and be positive every day, to show up when the same behaviors are coming out, all the time, and the activation and the worry is very disruptive. So I know that's kind of a little bit different than what we were just talking about, but I wonder if you can speak to that for them and even for us.
yeah, I mean, I think like what I love about, what you were just talking about is this idea of like, trauma informed parents and not experts. And we keep trying
Mhm.
different ways of engaging. And one of the things is there's no one size fits all for any one child.
Yeah.
So I think like even when kids are old enough where you can have a conversation, when you meet them at a time where they're not dysregulated. So let's say you find that moment where things are good. And to be able to bring up and create a plan together which is like, hey, I know like when we struggle, trying to get you to brush your teeth, take a shower, get ready for bed, do your homework, we keep having these blowouts. And I care so much about you, and I know you care so much about me, and I know these things don't feel good. And so I'm wondering, can we make a plan together? What helps you during these times? What
Mhm.
makes you even more angry during these times? Can we write out something? Can we try to figure out a strategy? I think sometimes we start to create a plan without the input of the child. And
Absolutely.
so understanding like, what do you think? You know, I, I you know, I remember having a kid that I worked with. It's a very different situation, but saying like, man, like I really hate having to like correct you during the group because I know you get embarrassed. And when you're goofing around and I'm trying to explain directions, then I got to go like, hey, Jeremy, stop, please. I know that embarrasses you. It makes you act, makes it even worse. But like, I also need to let you know when you're doing some stuff like, what if you and I had like a little, I don't know, like a signal where if I see you doing something, I can make eye contact with you and just kind of maybe rub my beard or pull my ear or
Love
brush
it.
my shoulder to let you know that I'm on to this thing. Because I I think that, my dad used to always say, nobody cares how much you know until they know how much you care. And so to be able to say to a child, like, I don't like seeing you upset or frustrated, or I want you to have more peace. I want you to have more friends. I want you to get along better with your sister, and I want to help. So, how can we partner together to figure this out? And again, as you're saying, sometimes these situations with foster parents, in addition to having to parent a child who's had so much trauma, they're trying to navigate a system that is not conducive. Even sometimes
Mm-mm.
getting like an appointment for a dentist is
Yes.
Yeah.
overwhelming. And, the stats around foster care um, are, they're really tough. I
Yeah.
mean, I'm sure you know them, and I don't want to admit, but like the amount of placements where a child on average moves 7 different times, and um, the challenges that children in foster care have moving through school and getting an education. I think something like less than 1% of foster kids
Mhm.
graduate from college. And so the idea that one parent is going to be able to do this, and so I feel like in a lot of ways we're asking foster parents to to do something that's almost impossible,
Mhm.
Mhm.
which is to navigate this system, be fully regulated themselves, handle and respond to trauma that they didn't participate in
Yes.
creating.
Yep.
They don't have all the information. The attachment is already challenged because you maybe don't have that same level of attachment. So how do we do the best that we can with what we got? And I think engaging the child in the plan
Mm.
and making sure that that child knows that you're doing this to be helpful and not hurtful.
Mhm.
And it's one of my favorite things that a teacher once said to me. She was talking to a child, and the child's like, Mrs. Johnson, Billy keeps pushing my chair. Like, was saying all this stuff. She's like, Annabelle, are you telling me this to be helpful or to be hurtful to Billy? And I remember, like, oh my God, that's such an awesome question.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes when we're reprimanding kids or they're acting out, their interpretation is we're doing this to be hurtful, to be
Right.
Mhm.
punitive.
Right. Right.
And how do we let them know that we're doing this to be helpful?
Just
Sure.
reframing the question. That just
Right.
does so much right there.
And
And I
being able
wanted,
to speak it, right? Being able to speak your intention, right? Because we assume a lot of things in our minds that people get our meaning and they don't necessarily, right? You know?
And
when we
more
were
than like, hey,
going,
this is going to hurt me a lot more than it's going to hurt you, I, and
yeah.
the idea that as parents, we got to understand it's interesting that foster any kind of parent, you don't see the behavioral results immediately. We kind of expect we're going to try an approach, and all of a sudden behavior is going to totally change.
Hmm.
And there are these micro changes that you don't necessarily see in the moment. It's like
Hmm.
Yes.
looking at a roll of film in a movie, and you look at like, from clip to clip, you can't see any difference.
Mhm.
But if you look at 1,000 different clips or five, you see a major move. And
Which
that,
brings me to back to the play aspect, because I think that's such an important part of your work. Because when my son was little and had had his trauma, yes, we played a lot, but I never perceived it as part of the therapeutic part of helping him. That was therapy and that was the doctors or whatever. But it's a whole different perception to realize that this too is part of helping him heal. And I'm wondering, are there specific games or the role of laughter or silliness like that are particularly important with traumatized kids? There are specific things that parents and caregivers, like even if it's just tossing a ball around, like I would have never thought sometimes in the middle of a heavy decision to just say, hey, catch this. But I think it would have been helpful to
yeah, I
break
mean,
up the moment like that.
it shows attunement. It shows that I see you.
Hmm.
And if it's someone who doesn't like to toss a ball around, then it's not the thing to do. But if it's like,
Hmm.
if I'm having a conversation, I mean, and this happens all the time. Like, I mean, not many kids want to sit down and have a face-to-face conversation and do nothing.
Exactly.
Um,
Hmm.
it's like, Dad, are we done? Like, I mean, I always joke with my kids, I'll be telling them something that I think is incredibly interesting. Like, Dad, like, we're not in school. Like, I was like, oh, sorry for trying to illuminate. Like, and the best discussions happen when you're doing something together. And it's like, I forget, I'm sure you've heard it before, the I, thou, and it. And it's like, so it's me, you, and the thing that we're doing. So, if we're driving and listening to music and a song's coming on, we're enjoying music, a topic might come up while we're listening to the music. If it's like, hey, do you want to hit some golf balls? Do you want to draw? All of a sudden you're drawing together and someone shares something.
Hmm.
The beauty of the play is not the magic of the game. It's
Hmm.
the container for the relationship.
Love that.
And that's like,
Yeah.
I always like the music's not in the guitar. I think it was Gatemouth Brown who said that. Like,
Mhm.
be like, do you have any therapeutic the game itself is not therapy. Therapy. The game is just the game. But what happens during the game, the interaction, for instance, like, and I'll share a great example because I only have great examples because I'm absolutely brilliant. Um,
That's why you're
I
here.
love people like, and
Ah.
I'm not like I'm telling you the truth. But like one of the games that we play, it's this fun little game called Squirrels and Nuts. It was invented by some counselors that I worked with at the academy. It was a very simple little game where you took a bunch of cones and you spread them out in a field, and then those were the nuts, and the kids were the squirrels. And their job was they had to gather the nuts and bring them back to their squirrel home, wherever that may be. And the counselor in this case was the fox. And the fox, when you're not in your little squirrel home and you go out to try to get a cone, you can get tagged. And if you get tagged, well, you're frozen and you can't get back into the game until somebody else comes and rescues you by tagging you. And then
Hmm.
you're back in the game. And the only way the kids win is if they collect all the nuts, bring them back to the squirrel home, and every squirrel is free and back home. And so there's therapeutic elements of that game, like being on a team, getting rescued, being a rescuer, contributing, dodging
Hmm.
danger. Like you could talk about those pieces. But a big part of what was therapeutic about it, because, so I play this game and I have a lot of fun. And then I'm working with my first group of homeless preschoolers and I introduce the game and they're hysterical crying. They don't want me to be a fox. That's scary.
Yeah.
They don't want me to be a wolf
Interesting.
or a dog. So they don't want to play squirrels and nuts. But I
Hmm.
said, okay, well, let's think. What's something that you would really want? And they wanted ice cream. Said, great. These
Course,
cones
right?
are going to be ice cream. And what do you guys want to pretend you are that's getting that ice cream? They decided on kitty cats. Okay. And where's a place that these kitty cats would feel safe, that nothing could harm them? Can you think of a place where you feel safe that nothing can harm you? They start talking about that. Okay, cool. This can be whatever space you want it to be. And what am I going to be that's trying to stop you? Well, they wanted me to be a friendly puppy dog. So I'm a puppy dog, and I had like a little bopper. It was like a
Mhm.
cushion, like a pillow. And if I tagged them, that was my tongue. And if I licked them with my tongue, it was all ugly because I was a puppy dog. They had to wait until somebody came and rubbed their head and wiped it off.
Oh my gosh,
Now
that
they're
is.
having a blast playing this game.
And they feel heard.
And the best one was if they didn't want me to chase them with that bopper, all they had to do was say, sit. And I sit. Or they could say, roll over. And I would roll
So
over.
you empowered them
Dead.
as well.
I would play dead. Now they can use their voice to do something.
Mhm.
So we create this game and it's a blast. And, they're having a blast telling me to play dead, to roll over. They're getting their ice cream cones. Well, then the moms for that group later on, I'm working with the moms, we played the same game. But they pretended that those cones were Section 8 housing vouchers
Mhm.
and that I was the mayor trying to stop them with budget cuts
Wow.
and that the shelter was their safe space.
Wow.
We played the same game. We changed the fantasy. We talked about how frustrating it was to not be able to get a Section 8 housing voucher. I did it with a group of teens who were kicked out of Boston public schools for behavior problems. And I started asking them just the question, what is something that you really want right now? I had the cones. One kid's like, I want a gun. This cone? It's a gun, bro. I didn't ask him yet why he wanted the gun. I didn't judge it, but now I got some data that I got a kid in my group who wants a gun. That's a follow-up conversation.
Yeah.
Ask another kid, what do you want? I want a girl. Ah, okay. Cone's a girl. I want a bag. Oh, you want cash? Okay, cool. I want a PlayStation. But all that stuff's out there. What's stopping you? Where do you feel safe?
Where do you feel safe? That's a good question.
That was like, or and if safe is like I don't feel safe anywhere. Well, where's this place where you feel good, man? Where's the place where you feel chill? Where's the place where you feel like you can be yourself? Where's a place where when you're there, you feel seen and valued? I can
This is
ask,
important because we think we know best often, and you're actually listening to them. Like my son's accident happened on Halloween, and we assumed that we'd probably never be trick-or-treating again.
Mhm.
No, he loved it more than ever the following year. And that was a surprise. And, had we not heard him or listened, we might have just said, oh, this year we're going away, we're skipping it. But,
I
they'll tell
mean,
you.
asking the questions, asking kids what they think they need, what they want, and sometimes ask it in many different ways and not so general.
Mhm.
Like
Mhm.
when you feel safe, safe sometimes is a loaded word. You might even ask them like if you didn't want to use like sometimes it's trigger words too. Like how do you feel? What's say,
Mhm.
and it's like they kids hear it, they instantly go into, oh, you're playing like,
Yes.
Yeah.
you might just go like, where's a place where you feel like you have fun? Because if you
Mhm.
ask where's a place where you have fun, well, you can't have fun and not feel safe at the same time. So
Right.
change your language. And I learned this from a catfish farmer on a plane flying home from the Mississippi Delta
Oh
who
my
said
gosh.
to me one day, he goes, I got a lot of kids now, and the one lesson I learned was I spent a lot of time as a dad trying to be interesting when all my kids really wanted was for me to be interested.
Mm,
Yeah.
And I
wow.
was like, oh shit, that's me as a group facilitator. I'm always trying to
Mhm.
be interesting. I got a new game for the kids. I got new ideas for the kids. I got
Mhm.
this. And when I started just asking the question, what's up? How was your day? What do y'all feel like doing? How do I make you in charge?
Mm.
Yeah.
Because isn't that really what trauma is about? Losing agency,
Yeah.
feeling that you have no
Yes.
choice and you have no control. And so
Yes.
the more we allow choice, the better.
Yeah. And
Yes.
I think there's always maybe not always, there's like this struggle as parents, right? That, when do we really lead and take control, and when do we lean in and use choice? And I think that sometimes, especially after a traumatic experience, the natural inclination for a lot of parents is I need to assert control. We have, our family has been, or our child has had their power and control and their safety taken from them, and I need to be the protector.
Or the
And
opposite. Sorry, but because the opposite can happen has happened with us, which is, oh, they've had trauma. They can do whatever they want. The poor kid will get far less restrictions and be more permissive with that child than, say, the siblings. But go ahead.
right.
Just
But
wanted to
still,
throw that
it's
in.
like it's like two ends of a spectrum, of a continuum. And what I think you're really saying, Stephen, and is that you really just need to lean in and meet a child where they are in whatever space that is, and find commonality of how to talk to them in a way that makes sense to them.
Well,
Right?
and the idea that you can give choice and give structure at the same time, like, I always joke, there's always a choice. And I
Hmm.
remember, telling my counselors we can always give kids a choice when I was directing a camp. And there was one day where one of the kids wouldn't get out of the swimming pool and it was a thunderstorm. And they're like, "Hey, can you help us get this kid out of the pool?" Like, you know, um, and you know, I was like, how are you going to give a kid choice in this situation where they have to get out of the pool? And it was easy to go to the pool and say, "Hey, you know, it's a thunderstorm. We need to get you out of the pool. You have a few choices. You can swim over to that ladder and get out. You can swim over to the stairs or get out.
Hmm.
Or I can jump in the pool and grab you and bring you out over the stairs and pick you up. But I got to do one of those things, but I want you to have a choice.
Hmm.
And I'm going to count to three. And if you don't choose one, I'm going to assume you want C, me jumping in the pool and picking you up.
Yeah.
And
Mhm.
so it's kind of like, hey, if you got to eat your green beans, you want to eat them
Right?
with a fork? Do you want me to feed you? Do you want me to put some salt and pepper on? Like, whatever it is, that's a stupid example, but like
Right.
we can get creative with how we give choices. But I got to be clear, as your parent or as your protector, I can't allow you to stay in the pool during a thunderstorm.
Yeah. So that's the balance of
Hmm.
permissiveness and boundaries. But there's one thing I'm remembering you told me recently, and you might have to help me here because I know you said you were traveling and working with some preschools, was it, or kindergartens?
Yes.
And you shared that what you had seen, like that there wasn't a lot of play or a lot of movement. Can you remind me what you told me? Because I remember feeling like, oh, I wish that wasn't so.
Yeah, I mean, it was funny because, I won't say where I was at, but I was at like a university and they had their university childcare. And, I showed up and there was a lot of like small motor fun play, a sand table and a water table, and there was a little buildings section. And so the kids were building with these big blocks, and I was observing, but they also said I could interact with the kids. So we were building the blocks, and I was like, "Hey, you guys want to try to jump over these blocks?" So they lined up, and they were all taking big jumps over the blocks. And one of the teachers said, "Oh, we don't jump in here." And I said, "Oh, really?" And I'm a little bit of a wise ass sometimes. Like, why not? Said, "Well, kids could get hurt." And I was like, "Okay." And then there was this awesome hallway. And it was winter, it was cold, and no one's in the hallway. And the kids would run and say, "Oh, we don't run in hallways." And I'm like, "Yo, why not? Freaking perfect place to run."
Mhm.
Or we don't climb up the slide. Oh, why
Oh,
not?
I used to get some looks
And,
for that one.
and so like, and so what I kind of was talking to the teachers about afterwards was like, I really want to know, why don't you climb up the slide? Well, we don't climb up the slide because if kids are sliding down and kids are sliding up, someone's going to get hurt. Absolutely makes perfect sense. So really what you're trying to say is we don't climb up the slide and climb down the slide unsupervised at the same time. But what if You lined kids up. You had somebody at the ladder so no one could climb up the ladder. And you said, today we're going to practice climbing up the slide and then sliding down on our bellies.
Hmm.
And so you're going to get it. But we got to make sure Mrs. So and so is over at the ladder because we can't climb up and slide down at the same time because then someone could get really hurt.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
now oh, why can't you run in the hall? Oh, well, if kids are running in all different directions, someone's going to get hurt. Oh, that makes sense. So how about painting a big arrow around that we're going to run this way? And when you get to the wall, everyone's going to stop.
Hmm.
And now we're going to
Mhm.
run back because kids want to run. How do we do this thing that you're saying we don't do safely?
Hmm.
It would be like, yeah, we don't eat because someone might choke.
Right.
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
how do we
Right.
eat safely? And
Right.
again, like it's funny, it's so ironic because I tell that story all the time in Mississippi about the slide climbing, and my daughter broke her arm climbing up a slide when someone was climbing down. So,
Did
like,
you?
God, thank you. I mean, that's poetic justice for me.
It is.
But
Well,
again, maybe, so I'm going to play a different slide. Maybe that wouldn't have happened if early on people learn that you don't slide down and climb up at the same time.
mhm,
You can do both, but you have to be able to navigate and know which way is which.
mhm,
And accidents are going to happen. Kids are going to fall down at playgrounds. Kids are going to get hurt.
Mhm.
Um,
yeah,
there's beautiful blessings in skin knees and
yes.
bruised bones.
There's a book of that same name, The Blessing of the Skin Knee.
Yeah, and
Really?
and
Yeah,
And,
it's a
and
good
so,
book.
like, this idea that we're somehow, it's more important to protect kids from even mind, like, how much is a kid going to get hurt jumping over a cardboard box on a carpet in a classroom?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
what have we
Mhm.
gotten that soft that we can't do that? And what's the message that you're so fragile?
Right.
My
And
son broke
so,
his foot jumping off a stack of phone books in our mailroom in New York City, but I wouldn't still to this day not have ever stopped him from doing that. It was a joy he
people
got, and it
sprain their
was a
ankles,
minor
break their
break.
feet all the time, playing basketball, playing soccer, jumping rope. And so our idea here is, obviously, I'm not saying to be reckless. We have to mitigate risk, but not all of it.
Yeah.
Right.
And so, like, again, what is the right amount of risk to take? And I can imagine for a parent who's had a child that had a devastating accident. I mean, people die falling off playground equipment.
Hmm.
And so here we are as parents being asked this impossible choice. If we're too smothering, we're a helicopter parent and we don't let our kids thrive. But if we give them a little slack and they fall off the playground and break their arm, we're negligent. We're not going to get it perfect. What's
Yeah,
the
where's the
dance
middle?
that we do?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And again, it's a challenge. And
It
for me
is.
as a parent, I tell my kids, I'm going to lean more towards protecting you.
Hmm.
Dad, why can't I go out at night and take the train? Blah, 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 blah. I want, like, other kids are doing. It's like, hey, man, I get it. And I think you'd be fine.
Hmm.
But as a parent right now, I'm not super comfortable with it. So here's what I'm going to do. I'll drive you.
Hmm.
Right.
I
Hmm.
get it. Yo, you want to take the train? That's cool, but not after 7 o'clock at night.
Right.
And
Right.
this is not about you that I don't think you can handle it. But, my son's old enough to understand. But as a dad, man, I got to make decisions. And there's nothing in the world that's more important to me than you. And this is a decision I'm going to make as a dad.
Nice. As we're getting close to needing to wrap, and I wanted to ask you because we
I'm
ask
not
all our
rapping. I'm
guests.
staying on. We're going to do like one of those Joe Rogan 3 hours. I mean, he
I
talked
love
to,
it. I got
let's
so many
go.
more questions. Let's go. Get
Oh,
a
okay. So
snack.
I won't do our final question yet.
No, you can do whatever you want. Because sometimes you got to leave with people wanting more. If I talk any longer, people are going to get sick of me. And maybe now it's like just the perfect amount of me.
All right. Well, Kat, you said you had another question.
Um, so now you put me on the spot. My question went, whoa, out of my brain. Um, so I think what I was hearing before is it sounds like um, that notion of not necessarily things will always be okay, but eventually things will be good. Like, okay, we fall, we break our arm, we have an accident, something happens. It's inevitable in life, right? That we are hurt or traumatized by things. And I think what I love about your work and this whole piece of what we've been talking about is that it's that and we will get through it, and you may be wiser on the other side, and there are things to learn from the experiences that we have, right? So to not
Yeah.
have right, to not have those experiences as I'm thinking about moms who shelter too much or hover too much, and you can't do anything, and we do a disservice to our kids and to ourselves, right? In not letting them experience life as it is, because suffering and pain are a part of the whole experience, and we have to,
And
prepare them,
not to end on this note, but none of us get out of here alive. I know how the story ends for all of us.
right?
And um it's a it's something, this idea that, I love, there's a bumper sticker I saw in a car recently and said, I hate to spoil the ending, but everything's gonna be okay.
I saw
And
that.
I really got a kick out of it. And
That's
I
great.
was thinking about, what does it mean that everything's gonna be okay? And that's kind of the optimist. The optimist isn't saying, I'm going to get the promotion, or I just did some blood work to test if this thing that they found is cancerous or not cancerous. The optimist isn't the one saying, I know it's going to come back and it's going to be fine. That's like magical thinking. It
Hmm.
may not. To
Hmm.
me, the optimist, which I'm working on, is, hey, you know what? No matter what comes back, I'm going to handle it.
Yeah.
I'm going to move forward with it. No
Hmm.
matter what the result is, I can face it. And it was interesting. My wife was sharing this thing with me recently, which was saying, I forget exactly how it was framed. It was so brilliant. Where someone said, oh, I'm not going to be able to handle this. If something happens to my child, I'll never be able to handle it. She says, yeah, right now, you in this moment can't handle it. But you have to have faith in your future self that is facing that situation. Believe in your future self, because right now, with who you are and what's going on in the world, you're probably right. You can't even imagine it, let alone handle it.
Hmm.
When you're faced with it, believe that your future self will rise to the occasion to be able to handle it.
Hmm.
We're all going to have to handle. I mean, Susie and Kat, I mean, you guys have already, I know Susie, Kat, we're just meeting, but I know Susie,
Hmm.
you've already handled things that most people will tell you, I couldn't do it. I couldn't imagine.
Well, I
And
might have said the same thing before.
and you might
Yeah.
have said the same thing.
Hmm.
And here you are. And you don't wish any of those things to happen, but here you are and taking these experiences and now using them to create something and to give and to help. That's truly what optimism is.
Hmm.
The alchemy of taking pain and suffering and loss and turning it into service,
Hmm.
turning it into love for other human beings. Like, this is the beautiful, this is what it's about. It's not, you never wish these things to happen. But if we live long enough, there's nobody here who's going to get through this without what some people might call unimaginable pain. And
Right.
I know
Yeah.
one of our good friends, Jeremy, said, no, you can imagine it. So, you know,
Yeah, I
I
think
don't
that's
know
a
if my point is
misconception a
there, but
lot
I
of
think
us
there
have.
might be something there.
A misconception a lot of parents have had is that I can't handle something, or if my child goes through this, they couldn't handle it. And you make, I think the strongest point you make today is listening to the child, because a lot of the times they can handle things that you may not think they can. They may be hurting, and you've got to acknowledge that pain and not force them to talk about it, but just be aware of how they're processing it. And do they want to talk about it, or would they rather not? I mean, my son used to say, I don't want to talk about it. So we didn't talk about it, but he
Hmm.
would get it out in certain, again, play, jumping on the trampoline wildly was, I see that now. It wasn't just jumping on the trampoline. That was a way for him to get out a lot of stuff.
And for way to you guys to be together and to and also I think one of the things that's kind of fun lately is, and I'm going to experiment with it, because sometimes I'll talk to my kids and they tune me out. And so I got like TikTok, and I don't have a thing, but I'm like making these little TikTok videos that are about like, hey, days. And I look like a tick that's formatted that way. And I
Uh-huh.
can only send it to her. It's not on TikTok, but I send it to her in a text, like a TikTok video. And I'm just trying to be an influencer, Daisy. So,
Oh my
hey,
God.
novel idea. When you open the fridge and you take out milk, put it back in.
That's
And I
great.
might have like a little thing, like little stars, like put it back in with a musical soundtrack. Maybe
Exactly.
that will get it. But like, but again, the only reason I can do that is when I'm
Mhm.
feeling creative and joyful, because when I'm depleted, I just go, Daisy, will you put the damn milk away?
But we forget
Yeah.
that's an option. We forget to be silly.
Mhm.
We're weighted
Social
down, but we
media,
forget
text,
to be
Yeah.
silly
videos.
takes 30 seconds and we forget what that can do.
Right. And we
Um,
forget to fill our own cups. That I think is really important. We forget to do that. We get in the grind. The world is what the world is now, and people feel more uncomfortable, and we forget to find our own play, our own joy.
Well,
Right?
yep.
and that's why it's like here's my big plug, but like I started a little newsletter just called Having Fun Yet. And it's for
Oh,
parents and caregivers, just like a monthly of little ways to just have more fun. Because
Mhm.
this idea of fun is about feeling alive in a moment together. I
Can
think,
people get that from the website? Should they go to,
um, oh
or,
my God, I should have known. They can, um, they can simply email me and I'll
okay.
sign them up. Steve@lifeisgood.com.
Okay. I'll put that up. We'll put that up.
yeah.
Steve. I don't
We will.
believe in a Steve with a PH. I just don't agree with it.
Understand.
So for any of you Steves with a PH, I'm a V guy. Steve@lifeisgood.com. But we can send out a little thing for it. And it's really just little ideas about these same things. How do we elevate? How do we turn up the fun in
Yep.
our interactions with kids?
Yep.
And to know that we got to believe in our kids more.
Yeah.
We got to
We ask
believe,
them,
give them the space that they can help guide us to how
yes.
they want to be cared for.
Here, here.
Absolutely. All
We
right,
ask
Suze, do
all
we
our
have time? Oh,
guests,
yes,
we
please.
ask all our guests, if you could go back in time and teach your parents or caregivers one thing about trauma, what would you tell them?
I would tell them that trauma isn't about what happened to the child, that
Mhm.
trauma is about what the child perceived happened. When I was a kid, I was scared of going to summer camp.
Me
And it
too.
was like, oh, it's summer camp. It's safe. It's fine. You're going to camp. We can push you to go to summer camp. Instead of asking what my perception of that experience was.
I can
And
relate
when
to
I
that.
learned later, and it's interesting because, I hated summer camp as a kid. And here I am being a director of a camp. And I actually don't believe that I would have ever done what I've done in my work had I enjoyed summer camp.
Hmm.
Because my motivation for being a camp counselor was like, I'm going to make sure no kid ever felt as lousy as I felt when I was
Wow.
at camp.
Wow.
And so when my mother will sometimes reflect and go like, I can't believe I sent you to summer camp. I feel so awful. I never knew you had. It's like, hey, mom, it turned out okay. Maybe if you didn't send me to summer camp, I would have been a serial killer. I don't know. Don't know the path. So I'm
Right.
like, it's the best thing that ever could have happened because it's the only thing that happened, and I'm pretty happy with where I am right now. So, but the idea of like someone says, "Oh, you're fine."
Mm.
Like someone falls
Mhm.
in the pool. "Oh, you're fine. You're
Mhm.
shallow. You can do." It's like that's what happened,
Hmm.
but what did the child perceive happened? They
Mhm.
perceived that I'm going to drown. And so we sometimes mitigate someone's experience because in reality we go, "Oh, you were fine the whole time. I got
Mhm.
lost in the mall. Oh, you were fine. You were right here. It was safe. We were in the store." Instead of saying, what was that experience like for you? What did you think was happening?
Mhm. Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
trauma isn't about what actually happened.
Yep.
It's about what you perceived happened.
Yeah.
And
Brilliant. Yep. Absolutely.
And then I would also say too that like, just not so much about trauma, but that, we can't just look at developmental norms and say, well, you're 9, you should be able to handle this. You're 13, you should be able to handle this. To know that every kid has their own temperament and kids develop at their own pace.
Yes.
And, what's right for one kid. Um, I remember Gabor Mate saying something like, no one's raised by the same parent.
Right.
Even if you have 5 kids, it's like they're
Oh,
all
yeah,
raised by a different parent.
definitely.
And, just like they're raised by a different parent, every kid is different.
Every kid.
And
Yep.
so let's try to meet kids where they are, not where we think they should be.
Thank you, Steve. This
This is
is
wonderful.
a lot of great
Really.
stuff.
Well,
Yeah.
hey, I had a blast. Like there's something about when you talk to people and there's some people who open you up, and when you're in their presence, good stuff comes out. I don't know how much good stuff came out, but it felt good to me because I'm with people who I know are awesome people who care a lot about kids and families, and it's a tremendous honor to be on your podcast. And I
Thank
hope we
you.
get more views on the Bessel van der Kolk podcast. I'm very competitive.
Oh, I think we
So
will. I think we will.
we have to.
Yeah,
I
we'll
got to tell
get
you
it
one
out
last
there.
Bessel story. My favorite, because I love Bessel van der Kolk taught me so much about trauma. But one of my favorites, when I
Mhm.
first joined the trauma center, I was working with the PTSM, it was like post-traumatic stress debriefings.
Mhm.
And so I watched one of Bessel's lectures, and I came up to him afterwards. I'm like, I was like, hey, Dr. van der Kolk, that was a great lecture. And he's like, who are you? And he looked at me like, who are you? And I said, oh, I'm Steve Gross. I'm new here. I'm working with the PTSM trauma debriefing group. And he goes, that doesn't work, right? That was my first. And then
Oh,
Bessel and I grew to be really good friends and colleagues because Bessel's one of the most playful people in the world in the sense of playful about freely and joyfully engaging, connecting, and exploring. He's always curious.
yep.
He
Yeah.
Yep.
never he's always looking at new things, new ideas, drama, music, drumming. I
He
mean, pretty
spoke
soon
very
I'm
highly
like
of you
making
when
popcorn. I don't know what it's going to be, but he'll find something. He's never afraid to go, this thing that I thought was right isn't right anymore.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep.
It's like so, a lot of love for Bessel van der Kolk, and he's forgotten more about trauma than I'll ever know.
Right.
Um, but he
Me too.
also really respected the play piece. And he used to
Yes.
say to me sometimes, you're actually doing the real work. This stuff that you're doing is the real work.
He said that when he was on our podcast about you.
And it
Yeah.
made me feel so good because when someone that brilliant sees you and shoot, it's not rocket science playing with a parachute, rolling around the ground, pretending you're a whale, chasing after kids playing squirrels and nuts. You can develop an inferiority complex when you see someone as accomplished as Bessel. But he saw
Mhm.
that as magic transformative work. So
Absolutely. Yeah, without a doubt. Thank you so much.
thank you
Really.
guys.
Hey, it was such a pleasure to meet you and get to interact with you
Uh,
for a while. That was awesome.
Kat, my pleasure. Now hopefully we'll become lifelong friends now.
Love it. I am down for
Absolutely.
that.
Yep.
Sounds
Yep. You're
good.
in.
Thank you guys.
Thank you.
That was
Thanks for
great.
joining us.
Enjoy
We
your
can,
summer.